When we receive a letter from our healthcare provider, the last thing we assume is that it's fake. When Patrick O'Hara received a letter for a COVID booster jab, he too had no doubts or suspicions. That was until he was injected with a lethal, toxic chemical that's changed his life forever. For today's case, we're visiting an area which is much closer to myself than the previous cases. Patrick O'Hara is a retired environmental analyst from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. He often worked with asbestos and so would have regular health checkups. So when he received a letter from the NHS stating he was due a COVID booster jab at his home, he didn't suspect anything unusual. The nurse, Raj Patel, arrived at the residence as planned on the 22nd of January 2024, where he stayed for 45 minutes carrying out blood checks and health surveys. O'Hara's partner, Wai King Leung, also known as Jenny, requested and received a blood pressure check just before Raj continued to administer O'Hara's COVID booster jab. While receiving the injection, O'Hara shouted out as a reaction to the immediate, excruciating pain he felt. The nurse just brushed it off and said his reaction was not uncommon and that it may just be an allergic reaction. He then quickly left the home. O'Hara trusted the nurse when he said it was just an allergic reaction because he had no reason to think otherwise. However, Jenny caused O'Hara some concern when she then made a comment that Raj was about the same height as her son. He then became really suspicious from a combination of Jenny's comment, the nurse's quick exit, and just sensing that something wasn't quite right. So he quickly stepped out onto the street to try and confront the nurse, but he was already gone. O'Hara became really poorly in the following hours after his injection, suffering with pain and swelling in his arm. He visited A&E where he was given painkillers and antibiotics to try and help, and at this point doctors just assumed it was a botched COVID jab. The following day, however, his arm, now discoloured with blisters and burns forming around the injection site, O'Hara revisited A&E in the RVI. Baffled by the cause, doctors admitted O'Hara to hospital, where he was diagnosed with necrotizing fasciitis, a life-threatening, flesh-eating disease. Doctors were shown the NHS letters that O'Hara had received, only to discover they were fake, and so they informed Northumbria Police. So who is Raj Patel, and why did he attack 71-year-old Patrick O'Hara? CCTV footage was analysed from the couple's street to track the steps of their culprit. After leaving the home, he was traced back to a Premier Inn in Newcastle city centre and back to his home 50 miles away in Ingleby Barwick in Stockton. After some digging, police made the discovery that a fake name was used on the letters and at the hotel. There was no Raj Patel, nor was he a nurse. The culprit's real name was Thomas Kwan. He is in fact a doctor, and his victim was his very own mum's then partner of 21 years. So a bit of Thomas Kwan's background before we explore his twisted thinkings. Thomas Kwan was 53 years old at the time of the crime, and he was born in Hong Kong. He moved to the UK at 13 years old, where he attended a boarding school before studying medicine at Newcastle University, and he then went on to work as a GP at Happy House Surgery in Sunderland. He's been described as a wealthy doctor, living in a large detached house in Ingleby Barwick with his wife and his young son. He'd also recently offered £2 million for a house in the south. That's just something to maybe keep in mind a little later in the case. Thomas Kwan sent his first forged NHS letter to his mum's then partner in November 2023. It stated Patrick was eligible for a COVID booster jab at his home, and an appointment date was issued as the 22nd of January 2024. He then later sent a second forged letter 2 months later, dated the 3rd of January, suggesting a time between 9 AM and 1 PM that day. The detail he went into forging these letters was extraordinary, as he even included a QR code to a questionnaire. With his twisted plan now in motion, Kwan booked an overnight stay for himself and his wife at the Premier Inn in central Newcastle for the night of the 12th of January 2024. It is believed he did this to try and scope out the area and see if it would be suitable to carry out his murder plan. Kwan obviously considered it suffice, as 3 days later he made a booking for the night of the 21st of January. This time, however, he booked it under a fake name and fake address. The 21st of January came around and Kwan had tried to meticulously cover his tracks. An appointment reminder was sent to O'Hara from an unregistered SIM. Later that night, he travelled 50 miles north from his home to the Premier Inn in his Toyota Yaris, complete with fake licence plates. He checked in the early hours of the 22nd of January, where he presumably attempted to get a few hours sleep before waking for breakfast. When he emerged, he had disguised himself as a community nurse by the name of Raj Patel. Kwan wore fake tan, a wig, fake facial hair, tinted glasses and a medical mask, complete with a long coat, flat cap, surgical gloves and fake ID. He also spoke in broken English with an Asian accent. All of this just in an attempt to fool his mum and her partner so they couldn't recognise him and ruin his intention of administering a lethal injection of poison. As we already know, Kwan carried out the fake medical appointment at his mum's home for 45 minutes before making a very swift getaway. He made his way back to his home and carried on with life, hoping his lethal injection was successful. Successful he very nearly was. The flesh-eating disease that O'Hara developed caused unimaginable pain and horrific injuries requiring multiple surgeries. Surgeons battled to stop the disease from spreading beyond his arm by cutting away the diseased flesh. Significant amounts of dead muscle tissue had to be surgically removed and multiple skin grafts were required. O'Hara underwent reconstructive surgery and he still has scars and disfigurement. He spent 1 week in intensive care, followed by a further 4 weeks on a hospital ward. Cell samples and blood tests were taken, however the toxin just couldn't be determined. Police finally caught up with Kwan and arrested him 2 weeks later in his home on the 5th of February 2024. Kwan, however, refused to answer any questions, but he did warn police to be cautious of his garage.
Hello there. Sorry at this time in the morning. Is it Dr. Kwan? Yes. Dr. Kwan, hello. From Northumberland Police. Do you mind if we come in for a second, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Are you happy to talk in here? Yeah. Dr. Kwan, you might as well just stay standing for us if you don't mind, please. My name's... The time is now 06:30 hours, okay? I'm arresting you for the offence of the suspicion of the attempted murder of common law and the Criminal Offence Act of 1981 and administering a poison or noxious substance communist section 23 of the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861. Now both of those offences occurred in Newcastle upon Tyne on Monday the 22nd of January 2024, okay? So you don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention one question, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given as evidence. So again, you're now under arrest on suspicion of those offences, okay? Do you understand that? You do.
Upon searching the garage, police discovered a whole array of dangerous chemicals amassed throughout. Sulfuric acid, liquid mercury, thallium, arsenic, and ingredients to make ricin, a scheduled chemical weapon, list some of the chemicals found. Police had initially thought that ricin was the chemical used in the syringe, but an expert had been called in and he believed a pesticide was more likely. Expert Dr. Emmett had found the injection in question to have contained iodomethane, which is a fumigant used in pesticides. A glass tube was found at Kwan's address containing the chemical along with a syringe and a needle. It's known to be highly reactive on external contact with skin, causing burns and blisters, and it's also highly toxic if inhaled, ingested or absorbed. With it being an industrial fumigant, no reports have ever been compiled of the effects if injected into the human body. I mean, why would there be? Police discovered 97 searches for iodomethane on Kwan's computer between the 6th to the 24th of January alone, along with a video showing how to make it. This wasn't the only incriminating discovery on Kwan's computer either. There'd been a whole host of disturbing books and documents. Some include the Poisoner's Handbook, How to Make Ricin from Castor Beans, 10 Poisons Used to Kill People, Ideal Poisons to Evade Detection, as well as a document giving guidance with murder investigations. Kwan had been extensively planning his attack for quite some time and meticulously trying to cover his tracks. He even created fake companies enabling him to order the chemicals. Even a couple of backup plans were also uncovered when discovering a document addressed to Patrick O'Hara. It states O'Hara would be eligible for free ready meals and drinks due to his contribution to the North East throughout his working life. They were to be supplied by the organisation Northern England's Men's Sporting Association, a charity Kwan had made up so he could lace Patrick O'Hara's food and drink with poison. Similarly, another document was found posing to be from the Northern Wine and Drink Tasting Gentlemen's Club. But why is it that Kwan had just such a hatred towards O'Hara, his mum's then partner? Kwan and his mum, Jenny, had a very strained and dysfunctional relationship for many years, beginning 27 years before the attempted murder, when his mum divorced his dad. He'd felt as though she didn't treat him as he felt a son should be entitled to. This just completely sums up Thomas Kwan's mentality altogether. A sense of entitlement and greed was obvious, but especially when it came to inheritance. Kwan was said to have felt snubbed after not receiving as much as he expected to from his dad's will after he'd passed. He'd stated that in Chinese culture, the eldest sibling would traditionally receive the largest proportion of financial proceeds. However, in the instance of Kwan's father's passing, the youngest sibling received the most. This massively angered Kwan and led him to forge a solicitor's letter and threatened his siblings that he will get what he deems as his rightful inheritance, as he's seen it as unfair. At some point before December 2020, he gave his mum a laptop, which is a really generous gift by anybody's standards, but Jenny wasn't aware of the spyware that Kwan had pre-installed. He used it to monitor her financial activity, as well as spy at what was happening within the household through the covert webcam. Jenny later created a will in 2021, granting O'Hara, who she'd been in a relationship with for 21 years, shares in her Newcastle home should she pass before him. This, of course, triggered Kwan's entitlement and greed, and their relationship only deteriorated further. Police were called to Jenny's home in November 2022 after Kwan just burst into her property uninvited to pester her about her financial affairs. Police were told of the ongoing financial issues between the two, especially concerning money that Kwan felt he was entitled to. Jenny, however, didn't want to have any charges brought against her son, worrying it would impact him as a GP. Kwan felt that O'Hara was undeserving of any of the share in his mum's home, and seeing O'Hara as a potential impediment to his inheritance, therefore feeling the need to remove the obstacle. Kwan then began dreaming up his audacious murder using his medical knowledge. 1 month later, on the 6th of November 2024, a court came together at Newcastle Crown Court. In court, further letters written by Kwan were revealed. In January 2022, Kwan wrote to his mum saying, "You say that I am selfish or greedy, but I would like you to make me the sole executor of your will, as well as giving me the most and largest proportion of the properties and inheritance, as you have told me many times that I am the one you love the most out of all children." I feel like that letter alone just sums up the entitlement and greed of Thomas Kwan. Prosecutors described Kwan as not only money obsessed, but to also have an obsessive interest in poisons and harmful chemicals. They elaborated on Kwan's distorted views, sharing an intercepted letter sent from prison from Kwan to his wife. Kwan had just found out that O'Hara might claim for financial compensation against him. The letter read, "Mother and elderly man wins and takes all of our hard-earned money and home. We will have nothing. How is that justice?" Kwan's defence had argued that money wasn't the sole purpose for the attack, and highlighted that Kwan had told the probation officer that he wanted a kind of revenge against his mum, and by hurting her and assaulting Mr. O'Hara, he would achieve this. Initially, Kwan pleaded not guilty. He did admit to administering a noxious substance, but claimed he meant to cause no more than irritation. However, the evidence against him was just so overwhelming that he changed his plea on the 7th of October 2024, on the second day of his trial. Judge Mrs. Justice Lambert stated that the letters were good forgeries and Mr. O'Hara and Miss Leung would not have reason to suspect they were fake. Whatever the deep-rooted cause, by 2024 and well before, your resentment and bitterness towards your mother and Mr. O'Hara was all to do with money and your belief you were not being given money which you thought you were entitled to. Kwan was charged with attempted murder and causing grievous bodily harm with intent. He received 31 years and 5 months in prison. Thomas Kwan's wife has expressed her lasting support for her husband. Having been together for 14 years, she is willing to wait over 2 decades to even be considered for parole. She said that she doesn't believe that Kwan intended to kill Patrick O'Hara. She said, "I really cannot find a man to compare to Tom. In his heart, he is very, very good. I don't blame him. I love him, trust him, and will be here for him until the end. I am going to be buried alongside him." She's also revealed that Kwan was bullied at school. She said, "He felt lonely and helpless. I feel so sorry for Tom. That is why I will wait for him and give him a good life in the end. If I leave him, his life will be too sad and I cannot do that to him." She also takes her son along to the prison with her so that he can visit his dad. She said that she tells her son everything and that she hopes one day he will understand his dad. She's also stated that Kwan's behaviour changed slightly in December 2023, just a few months before the crime. She said that he started to be really nervous and sweating on a night. She believes that this was down to a mental illness and that he wouldn't seek help with him being a GP himself. I couldn't find out exactly when it was, but Jenny and Patrick O'Hara have split up since the attack. Patrick O'Hara still suffers physically and psychologically, with the scars and disfigurement acting as an everlasting memory of the attempted murder. In August 2024, he became really ill again. He rapidly lost 1.5 stone. He lost nearly all of his hair and he suffered hallucinations and flashbacks. He was diagnosed with PTSD, caused by the emotional betrayal of being attacked by someone that he considered to be his family. His life has tragically changed forever and he still requires ongoing physiotherapy. O'Hara has said, "I feel as though I have been to hell and back. As a result of these incidents, I have been left a shell of an individual. I suffer from extreme fatigue. Every time I get changed, I am aware of the disfigurement to my arm, and this, in addition, has shattered my self-confidence. Overall, this incident should have been the end of me. The nature of what had occurred to my body has left me speechless. Had it not been for medical intervention, I am positive that not only would I have lost my left arm, but my life as well.